everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Be Real. I am Tara.
And I'm Sheri.
And this will be a doozy potentially. I mean, we're still going to poke fun at it, but today...
Well, I mean, that's what we do, right?
That's what we do. That's why you guys show up. That's why we continue to have these conversations. Because we just can't take anything too seriously.
For real. I mean,
I
just have to say there's so many TikToks that are taking all this stuff to like such a severe level. And
across the board
board about everything. I'm like, whoa, let's take some things down a notch. And I get it, but everybody and their brothers using the word trauma bond, and I'm just like, please let's take that down a notch, right?
Let's humanize this.
I get it, but I'm the first one to say that's happened to me. I get that.
Sure.
But we can't just keep using all these words over and over again. Half the people don't really even understand what it really means. So let's just, and I don't even know that was a word before TikTok took it on.
Trauma bond? I hope you're joking.
I'm just kidding. Trauma, but they act like it was their own thing, right?
Course. Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, yeah, this is real, but like, I don't know. It's just too much. It's too much. It's everything. It's everywhere.
We're already diverting before you even
Sorry.
introduce the topic. No, because I'm going to do it
because this
more.
is another trauma bond. We're going to talk about.
I'm going to extend it some more. It's just like hearing, and I'm going to shit on coaches for a second, or just unqualified, quote unquote, mental health professionals on the interweb. Like discovering these phrases or these terms as if they created it, where they talk about attachment theory.
I'm like, that's forever, right? Oh yeah, my favorite buzzword.
And I'm like, you found the book list on Amazon, did you?
Right, exactly, right.
So anyway, to the topic for today, and it sounds like this is going to be a part 1 and part 2.
Okay.
But for part 1 today, I thought we would talk about another little buzz topic for generations: daddy issues.
Daddy issues, yes.
Yes. So
every girl has daddy issues.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, your ex-girlfriend has daddy issues.
For sure. But nobody really talks about men having daddy issues.
No, we don't.
Right? But they absolutely do.
Of course. No, this is not a gender. As part 2 we'll come to find out, none of this is really a gender issue.
No, it's not.
It just, the culture has taken it into that, right? Where the language we use and the importance that's put on the words that we use takes us into that direction.
Right.
So, Sheri, where do you typically hear the phrase daddy issue be thrown around?
When somebody's complaining about their girlfriend or their ex-girlfriend.
Any particular context?
No, that's where I've heard it before, like I've never had that thrown on me. I mean, I probably do have. I think everybody has some daddy issues, no matter how great your dad was or wasn't, right? But it's kind of an innate thing, right? I've always said no matter how great your parents are, they're going to screw you up in one way or another. You're going to have something to blame them for, whether it's real or imagined, right?
Yeah, if you're a client of mine, you may have heard me joke about me sending your super bill to your parents.
That's
or
right.
to your boss or to
Absolutely.
whoever.
Like, just give it to them. Give them credit where credit is due. And some is given too much, right?
I think, maybe.
But yeah, definitely from people saying about like, oh, she really had daddy issues. And I think that a lot of times it's more of a girl saying that is what I've heard.
Like girl on girl crime type of situation.
Well, yeah, girls saying it about other girls,
That's
right? Not necessarily about their partner, but like in referring to somebody broke up with somebody and they said, oh, but it wasn't your fault because she just had daddy issues, right?
That's so
it's
cringy.
Like, oh.
I think I've also heard it mostly in a relationship context or in a romantic interest context.
Right. Well, that's where it comes from, I think, most of the time. Like
Maybe.
Because how many times have you heard we date people like our parents, right?
Yeah, I have heard that.
And I know I've said it inappropriately in the past. Like we date our parents. No, that's not what I mean. No. Like the idea is we find people subconsciously, I think more than anything, that are very similar to our fathers, women, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, and I think in the work that I've done, that can transcend heteronormative relationships as well. I've worked with a lot of bisexual and lesbian women in my career.
Right.
And I've seen that come up quite a bit as well.
Right.
Where their partners will mirror characteristics of their father.
Yes.
Specifically, which I think is really, really interesting.
Right, and that person doesn't have to be male or female to exhibit those characteristics. Yes. I'm very similar to my father.
Okay.
I'm a woman, so that doesn't have a a bearing on whether or not I'm like my father or not.
These are characteristics.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that subconscious piece that you mentioned, it's the familiarity, right? When you and I work with trauma, we talk with people about this. The reason that you repeat these patterns, these behaviors, these thoughts, even though they're nonsensical, is because even though they don't make sense, they feel very familiar to your memory and to your core.
Right. Familiar doesn't necessarily mean good.
Right.
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 Familiar just means your nervous system knows it. And it says, oh, this feels comfortable. And sometimes in a sick way, right? When we say comfortable, we think of that as something that we enjoy being in.
Yeah.
There's no enjoyment there. It just your nervous system says this is a space I've been to before.
I know how to navigate that.
Yes. Right. And even if I don't want to, it just means that it's something that I've experienced before, feels comfortable and normal to me.
That's it, right? Normal.
Right.
And breaking down the barriers of what normal
Exactly.
is. So, slight tangent again, to get back on to, I wanted to touch on this, where I also hear daddy issues, or she has daddy issues being heard, is specifically in sex work. Of a woman couldn't possibly make a choice to use her body or to use her sexuality in her work without having an issue with who she is, stemming from her dad not giving her attention.
Ooh, wow.
Have you never heard that one
I
before?
have, but it really perverts it a little bit more, right? So like we like to do everything else, right? The idea is, I mean, really, if so many people who didn't know their father or didn't have a father figure, and I think that comes back to the idea that even if you had a father figure, like all your knowing life that person was your father, like people who find out later on that person wasn't their dad, or their biological dad.
Yeah.
It's still having that missing of a biological connection.
Yeah.
Is really deep. So now we've gone even more deep, right? Because that person abandoned me and may not even have known they did.
Sure.
So finding that out is pretty strong too. So those are some obvious deep wounded daddy issues. But then there's a lot of daddy issues that to the average person wouldn't look like a deep wound, wouldn't look like a trauma, what we think of.
Right. Well, that's why even in talking about perception of daddy issues from other people and projecting that onto women or onto other people,
right?
It really similar with all like big T, little T trauma.
Yes.
We can experience the same thing, you and I, and come out with completely different reactions and responses and behaviors and adaptations from that, right? So a girl who did not know her father, whatever the circumstances were, works a nice little boring accountant job and, white picket fence, family, golden retriever, all that shit. Another girl, same situation, and works at a strip club. But we're going to put value on one person's story in that direction versus the other, right?
Right.
Our CPA, when does the topic of daddy issues come in? Based on that really small snapshot I told you.
Right.
Societally, that's insignificant. But
exactly. Because she's got what we consider the norm.
The normal. Right. And then we have our friend Candy over here who, that was really.
Sorry. No. You went with Candy. You had to go with Candy. Poor Candy. She gets a bad rap.
Candy to the stage. I mean, I've worked with sex workers too.
But I just think that's
my sex worker clients know that did not come with shade. It was very much.
That was perfect.
Very much
thank
in jest.
Thank you for Candy.
Thank you to Candy. It's a social service very similar to what we do,
right?
In a different direction.
Oh please, yes, definitely.
But the existence of her profession is you just didn't know that is her entire story gets to be written about the fact that she didn't know her father.
Right, and she probably knew her father, and she might have had a great relationship with her father. Who knows? That's not necessarily a factor.
It's not. It's not. But one is going to absolutely build the case for or against a person.
Yeah.
You brought up something that I would love to explore too, which is daddy issues for men.
Oh yeah.
Obviously that. It must exist.
Well, it definitely exists. I mean, guys who felt like they never could do good enough for their dad, right? My dad was never proud of me, or my dad never said good job, or they just expected all these things of me and never told me they were proud of me. That says a lot to a man, right? And a man who's never felt good enough or respected by their father, or I had to respect him, but he never showed me any respect. Right. However that plays out, but that's a huge burden for these men to be able to figure out, how do I find that feeling of being proud.
Agreed. Yeah.
If I can't get it from the one man I was supposed to be like.
Right. And how does that pattern move into adulthood, from being a child to being a teenager, waiting for the I'm proud of you, waiting for I love you, waiting for hugs, waiting for emotional intimacy.
But you're a boy, you don't need that.
You don't require that, right?
Oh no, you don't, right? That's said with a lot of sarcasm, right?
No, it's
because it is, right? Because that's the shut up, if you don't cry, I'll give you something to cry about, or boys don't cry,
man
up, right? And that's a hurtful statement, if especially it's from your father, right? Like, and so if you weren't given that understanding that men can have emotions, or men can be
any emotion that's not anger.
Of course, right? Because anger is a very acceptable emotion.
It's
right?
a masculine emotion.
Exactly. Right.
Also said with sarcasm.
Of course, right? Only men can be angry, right? If we're angry, we're bitches, just so you know. So, but I mean, I've had a lot of men come in and tell me, when you ask them, when you think about this, what is it? How does it make you feel, right? But the idea is anger is almost always the only emotion that they understand.
Familiarity.
Exactly. Right. Because they'll come in and say, you know what, I've been told I have a lot of anger issues, and I agree, I do have anger issues. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's when I hand out the feelings wheel and say, hey, look, by the way, there's so many more feelings other than anger.
And two on polar opposite ends can be true at the same time.
Absolutely. That cognitive dissonance where people believe that one cannot be true with the other one being true as well. So
how do you feel scared and excited at the same time?
Right.
How do you feel, you feel behavioral expressions of sadness, but you really are happy or elated? Like, how do those exist? Of course they do.
Right. We are able to feel different emotions, right? There are some things that you can't feel at the same time, which is I can't be anxious and be calm at the same time.
Sure.
Right. But that's a physiological thing that happens in your body, right? But when we're talking about emotions that are more like a word, or people don't understand it other than it just being a word.
Yes. I read it in a book, but I don't know what it feels like.
Right. Or it's just every guy, the machismo men should be angry. Like, angry is we're protectors, and we have to find the right, we have to solve the problems, or we have to have not just solutions, but we are protectors, we're builders, we're the one you have to respect. If you don't respect me, all bets are off, right?
Guys, isn't that exhausting?
It is.
Haven't you had enough?
I would imagine.
Oh,
I say
gosh.
It is. I'm not a man, but I'm just saying I see it for them.
Your
as
father
exhausting.
was speaking through you in that moment. Thank you for asking.
But I mean, it's a lot of burden, right? To
Of
be
course.
like, society has told them that they're the only ones that can provide. I don't mean the only ones, right?
But that makes me
But
feel
that
like
has been such a thing.
it makes me think that there's this hypervigilance that's happening. And in my office space, I'm battling that with my clients constantly, which is, how do we bring your hypervigilance to a level that is unproductive? It's hyper aroused.
It's totally right.
And bring that to something actionable.
Exactly.
To feel anxious and calm at the same time. No, let's negotiate who gets to
Right.
take up
Well,
space when.
I have a lot of people who will say, and of course, most of these are military men, right? Because they're taught prepared means safety. And if I'm not prepared, I'm not safe.
Right.
So, but can you be safe and be prepared enough? Or can I be safe enough? Those are not concepts they understand, right? It's all or nothing. And I don't mean men in general. I just mean like military. And I think that's why, one of the reasons why when you go into the military, that's the majority of men, right? Other than a societal norm. But that's their calling. I am here to protect this. I am here to, that's just what I'm bred for, right? So that's also another hard thing for people who aren't that way, right?
That also makes me think of like legacy or generational military folks.
Yes.
So my dad did this, and his dad did this, and his dad did this.
Right. It's just, we should just do it, right? I have to follow the line.
And I respect that.
Right.
But
what
I
if
also
you're
am
not the guy who wants to do it?
I'm also going to call for critical thought here.
Right. What if I'm the guy who thinks, oh, what, you know what, there's something different for me. It doesn't mean he's not a protector. It doesn't mean that he's not capable of those things. It just means, no, thank you. I saw what it did to the rest of you. I'm not doing it.
Right.
Or that's not my thing, and that's okay, right? I think the long line of family, especially men, of all doing the same thing is another battle, right? My dad was this, like our last name is Shoemaker, so I must have, everybody along the line better make some shoes, right? I mean, that's a generational thing back in the day, obviously, but it's still the same kind of concept, having the same name because you're the oldest as maybe your dad.
That's a really good example, actually.
I mean, my mother and my grandmother and my great-grandmother all had the same first name, which is not, to me, that's not a norm, right?
Right.
But my my uncle, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather all had the same name, and they're senior, junior, and third, right? But my mom, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother, there's no senior, junior, and third. That's just, like the name, let's pass it down.
Yeah.
So,
because women are expected to change their last name too, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
but in the Spanish culture, they don't.
No,
so,
you adopt multiple names.
Right. You keep your father's name, and then you hyphenate your mother's name in there too. So we just want to let everybody know what the lineage is, but you keep your father's name.
That is true.
I mean, maybe not everyone is the same, but that's how I'm just going off of what my mom.
No, but that makes sense.
Right. But then she is a U.S. citizen. She got married to a U.S. citizen. She took his name.
Okay. So
but that's not how the hyphens are gone. Right.
Okay.
So.
Few.
Yeah. Right. Lots. Anyway, that's another show.
Sheri would have a nice long name.
Oh gosh, forgot it. I already have enough names.
Your poor son.
Nobody knows what my real name is anyway. Sorry.
That's all right. Sheri, it's just gonna be the new Cher. What's a last name?
I agree.
Sheri
I'm just
now only goes by Sheri.
That's right. I'm just Sheri. I don't care who I was and what I was. That's just who I am. That's the one constant for me.
I like it. Yeah. That's your identity.
That's my identity. I'm Sheri.
So that was with the shoemaker bit, because obviously identity is very much rooted in what I see as like masculine ideology. And what goes into that is very much rooted in identity. Protectors, workers, providers, etc. And a lot of men do feel very good about themselves when they get to do that. Right. I'm always going to call in critical thought. I already said it once this episode. Course, I'm always going to call on, okay, well, maybe I want to be a stay-at-home dad. Fuck yeah, do that.
Right.
Hell yeah.
Well, I mean,
does that make you less masculine?
No. And I think that's been more and more, obviously, over the last few generations. But you have people like, let's say, my father's generation, where his father, that was, people didn't really talk to their kids.
Yeah.
Especially not the way they do now. And my grandfather was definitely not going to be staying at home with my father, right? That's not what, that wasn't happening, right? And I'm sure that there were some fathers who did that for whatever reason, but that wasn't the norm, right? So now, and I think that the idea of your dad talking to you or not talking to you, also, that's the daddy issue on the dad side, right? Oh, no, we didn't talk about stuff in the house, right? It was very superficial. It was get your ass out of the house and go do this, you should be outside, or else the car, or...
Exactly. To fix your problems, go do something productive. Go be a provider of something.
Yes.
Fix your problems that way.
And again, that's also the generation, maybe before my dad's, I'm not sure, but like the idea where you left at 13 or you dropped out of high school at 15 and nobody told you there was something else.
Yeah.
Or you're running away from a lot of daddy stuff. There was a lot of daddy issues that men have run away from.
So that makes me, because, we like to get to the differences. So for daddy issues with men, it sounds like there's a lot of identity struggle.
Yes.
And then daddy issues with women, maybe it shows up more behaviorally.
Right. And to what you were saying earlier about candy, it shows up in a lot of promiscuity or
attention
seeking behavior, or that anxious attachment. Yes. Are you going to leave me?
Yep.
I love you, don't leave me. That constant.
I do so much, don't leave me.
Right. Yeah. Right. If I do enough, will you stay?
Yep.
Am I good enough? So I think that even if dad never left, there's still, if dad didn't talk to you enough, or dad didn't, poor dad, you can't really win here. Some of them do a great job and their kids still will say stuff like that.
Sure,
but I think that we're talking.
This isn't a formula that we're talking about.
No, there isn't any real formula to life in general. Just don't beat your kid and talk to them. Maybe that's important.
Bare fucking minimum, yo. This is the advice podcast.
Right. Okay, the advice podcast. Do not beat your children. At least not enough. No, I'm just kidding. Don't beat your children and talk to them.
Tell them you love them and act like it.
Right? Okay, so bare minimum, right? So if you got the bare minimum, good for you. But no matter what, I think we as women, we're going to look for people who are like our dads. Yeah. Even if we don't know that we're doing that. And then later on, we're like, damn it, I married my dad twice, or I married people like my dad, or certain traits that.
Not breaking that cycle.
No, right, exactly. And then you end up with 3 names. And then, so I know nothing about that. And anyway, so when my dad calls me and says, what the hell, that wasn't me, that's not fair. Right.
Oh, sorry. He's gonna have
Sorry, Dad, I wasn't really speaking of you. Anyway, so
we'll put the disclaimer in the show notes that this has nothing. What's your dad's first name?
Gaines.
This has nothing to do with Charles or Gaines.
There you go. That's right. That's right.
We're making this fit for
everybody, right?
Generalization, even though we constantly want to make room for exceptions. We believe that people can do better.
Right.
Show up in our office. You've already got a great start in terms of
absolutely.
I recognize this pattern. I don't like it anymore. Great.
Right. Well, I mean, how many times have you heard the psychosocial, which is this thing when you go into the office and somebody asks you all these questions, right? And it's just an understanding. My
clients have no idea what that is.
Right, exactly. Mine either. But it's like, tell me your story, right? And I also want to know, but you're going to tell me, I think this is a majority of people are going to start to say it anyway, but we want to know, what was your childhood like? Yep. I don't like to ask that question, but people end up telling me anyway. Because sometimes it's irrelevant, but most of the time it's relevant, right?
At some point it will be.
Right, exactly. But, how did your mom co-parent or not co-parent, or how was your dad as when you were a kid? Did you get the nurturing you needed? So all of these things, and again, you may say, I have so many people say, oh, my childhood was just fine. And then later on, they're like, well, maybe that's really came from, wow, I didn't realize that bothered me so much. And so I think a lot of daddy issues are hidden and we don't know what they are.
That's a beautiful sentiment. It's not something so overt. I used our friend Candy as an example. That is an extreme and often disconnected point that we're making here.
Exactly.
Right? Candy is not the example we're actually talking about when it comes to daddy issues. It's
exactly.
These really...
That might actually be mommy issues, and that's for another show. But
that's for a show in a few minutes. For you guys in 7 days.
Yes.
It's so much more in the deep end, right? A lot of the things that come up with daddy and mommy issues is stuff that creeps in and we don't expect it to.
Exactly.
How would you know that those kinds of things would affect you? How do you know what is mimicking your father when all your brain understands it as is familiar? I can work with this.
Right.
I know how to navigate this character trait. I know how to work with somebody who talks to me like this, whether it be good, bad, neutral. So it's not so much there aren't many people, even people I've worked with for maybe now for years, but there aren't many people that are saying, I know I responded this way because I'm mirroring my inner child who is asking for attention from my dad.
Well, if they've watched a lot of TikToks, then those people are coming to me now. But
TikToks
I think the average,
therapy.
I think a lot of people are starting to understand that more so than they have in the past. But agreed, people don't consciously know that kind of stuff. Or don't think that way.
The words have left your mouth. The action has happened. The behavior has happened.
Of course.
And then you're like, oh, that's why I did that.
Right.
It's not, I'm about to do this. I'm about to say this to you because this is how I've grown up and learned how to behave and
I've
talk.
like for me, sorry Gaines, but for me, I was raised to make fun of things, right? To laugh at things, and humor is a really big thing in my home, right? And not always in the greatest way of, look at that, whatever kind of thing, judgmental. So, or very sarcastic, but not being a jerk. Like it was just I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but the idea is that that's how you don't understand that maybe that's why I laugh at everything, or that's why I act that way. But to me as a kid, that was just normal, right? That's just how we did, right?
We don't know what we don't know.
Right.
That is normal.
And still to me this day, I point things out, not necessarily in a judgmental way. Well, that's not true. But anyway, I'm just more aware, I think, because of that. And anyway, so that's a good one. That's a good daddy issue right there. Straight from the mouth of Sheri.
Straight from the source.
Straight from the source.
Yeah, if anyone's interested in doing their own work, I'm sure Sheri will agree with me that attachment theory, there's a workbook that's really good for that.
Yes.
I speak from experience because my former therapist recommended it to me.
Good girl.
I'll leave that source there.
There you go. Good idea.
But attachment theory is a really good one. And books like Wired for Love or Wired for Dating, we've talked about them on the show probably about a year ago when we first started doing the men versus women episode.
They all seem to come up no matter what.
Those are our best performing episodes, okay?
Sure.
I can't bite the hand that feeds there.
Yeah.
But those are some good, I think those are some good places to start outside of good old TikTok and Instagram.
Yes.
If you're looking to get out of that room that's not therapy.
Exactly. There you go. Well, and that kind of goes like for girls who have daddy issues. We were talking about our new how are we describing our affiliate?
Our group?
Our affiliate, right? This idea of needing to like be affirmed.
Yes.
Right? So explain to us about this affiliate.
So we're working with Cope Notes now. Okay. You can find them at copenotes.com. We have I want to call it affiliate code, but it's so much flashier to call it a promo code.
Woo-hoo,
so we have our own promo code for 10% off. It's Let's Be Real. Easy to remember. Don't put an apostrophe in there. If you go on their website and sign up, you get daily text messages, and this works for any SMS phone. So you can have a flip phone. You could gift it to your grandparent, great-grandparent who refuses to get a smartphone, and they can still take part in this. They can still get those daily messages. And then you can get it for 10% off. And that's a good way to support the show if you guys are interested in supporting the show. We're not doing a Patreon or anything like that. But this could be a way you could gift it for yourself, gift it for somebody else, see what it's all about.
And these are not disappointing affirmations.
Correct. These are not disappointing affirmations. These are quotes, motivation.
Right.
I'll call them positive affirmations.
Okay.
They're intended to benefit your mental health. The creator, help me, I don't remember his name, but he's done TED Talks. He's done a lot of programming based on his own mental health journey. So it was really cool. I had a nice meeting with the people some time ago. We waited for our new logo to come out. So now we have our new affiliate program with them with our new logo and merchandising and everything like that. So if anyone's looking to support and get something in return for supporting us, this would be a great way to do that.
Absolutely, right? And we all are looking for some kind of affirmation to be affirmed, to understand that we are good enough, or we are people who deserve to be loved and cared for, right? That we have worth. And if that's what it takes to be able to remind you each day without having to have another person in your life that you suffer from that anxious attachment or that avoidant attachment, or because you're afraid of that, here's a great way to get that daily without having to muddy the waters.
Exactly. It's you don't have to ask anybody else for this kind of outreach or this kind of support.
Give it to yourself.
Offer it to yourself. Exactly that. Well, on that note, we will see you in the next episode with the same clothes on for part 2 and mommy issue.
All right.
Sheri was convinced I really wanted to start with that one, but no, got to keep you reeled in for this one.
Oh, yeah, we definitely will need to talk about that one. See you soon.
But you guys know where to find us in the meantime. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Let's Be Real, Sheri and Tara. Let us know what you think about the new logo. We love it, so you're only allowed to tell us that you also love it.
Ah.
We are accepting positive
critical
feedback.
thinking, though. Okay, critical thinking.
Criticism in the form of "we're doing great."
Sounds good.
Would be great for me to hear right now. So thank you. I'm gonna put that on you. But we will catch you in the next episode.
Bye.